Aquarius workshop, Live Without Fear. I start with a quote from Pathwork Lecture 130 with the title Abundance versus Acceptance. And the quote is as follows. As long as you fear, it is sometimes, although not always, inevitable to go through that which is feared in order to lose that fear. If fear can be shed by realization of the truth that there is no reason to fear, then it is not necessary to go through it. But man is often incapable of doing so. Hence he must familiarize himself so much with that feared circumstances that they lose their thread. End of quote from Pathwork Lecture 130. To live without fear is to live without this most destructive emotion. Fear that we don't face is a toxic energy, and unconscious fear is even more destructive. The best way to overcome fear is to acknowledge it, admit it, and bring it out, which produces the fear, and eventually it will disappear. Fighting the fear out of fear of the fear will make only the fear worse. Life seems so scary because we collectively believe in the fundamental misconception that we as humans are an isolated aspect of consciousness. We have forgotten our true identity. We identify with the little ego consciousness and are afraid to surrender to the true self, because we believe that surrender means destruction. This fearful struggle, which is the cause of our destructive defense against life and feelings, is an illusion. Giving up this struggle and discovering the truth that we have always been connected to the true self will bring us happiness, joy, and inner peace, and above all, a life without fear. In this workshop you will explore with a loving curiosity 3 fundamental themes of the Pathwork Lectures regarding living without fear. The first theme, fear of death. As long as we are afraid of dying, we are unable to live meaningfully and truly enjoy life. In fact, we are not alive at all. In fact, we are afraid of ourselves, and that fundamental fear manifests itself as fear of love, growing old, loss and change, fear of shortage, of the unknown, etc. Accepting our mortality and a healthy attitude towards death connects us with the true self and the life force. The next quote stems from Pathwork Lecture 81. Seek and you will find an area where your being that clings to life only in order to avoid death. This motivation contains negation, and thus the life force is negated too. But if you face and come to terms with death, your embracing of life will be done in positive spirit, and that alone will solve the problem of duality, since duality arises out of negation. Along the road of development and growth, this problem, at some times, has to be tackled, for some sooner, for some later, but come it must for everyone. End of quote from Pathwork Lecture 81. The second theme, fear of letting go the ego control. We are afraid when we don't have everything under control, but that is a false control that accomplishes nothing and makes us tense. Only when we have learned to let go of ego control and accept what is, will we achieve mastery and entrust ourselves to the universal forces of the true self. But first we need to learn to find the balance between taking control and the ability to let go. The next quote stems from Pathwork Lecture 158. Unfoldment and pleasure, delight and creative living, fulfillment and happiness can only exist when the real self is activated. When you do not identify exclusively with the ego, but when you are connected and identified with the real self, with the eternal creative substance of your being. This necessitates letting go of the direct ego control. It requires trust and courage to surrender to an inner movement that is not responsive to the outer thinking and willing faculties. End of quote from Pathwork Lecture 158. The third and last theme. Fear of pain. As long as we fear physical, mental or emotional pain, that fear will produce the pain we fear, and simultaneously, those events are the only way to convince the self that fear of pain is unnecessary. We experience an extreme fear of pain when we do not know what it will lead to and when we expect danger from it. If we know that a certain pain is not life-threatening, we can tolerate that pain calmly. In fact, we fear the unknown, and we can only cure that fear by entering the feared unknown. The last quote stems from Pathwork Lecture 198. When the fear is given up, or rather gone into, the pain can be experienced, and only then will the pain genuinely dissolve, and you will have mastered a slice of life that you no longer need to avoid. When fear of pain is blindly avoided until you no longer know that you fear a specific pain and do not know why you feel numbed and deadened, a magnetic energy block is being erected within your psychic system. This energy block is a powerful force that must inevitably draw to you the very experience you wanted to avoid. The pain you avoid must come to you from outside again and again until you can no longer avoid it. This is the law of life. End of quote from Pathwork Lecture 191. I wish you peace and all the best. Thank you.